Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a comparison between a Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro and a Honda Passport TrailSport. I know this might seem like a strange comparison, but we basically have Toyota's most off-road capable SUV versus Honda's most off-road capable SUV. Before we get into the video though, I do want to mention this will be a two-part series. The first part's going to be a walk-around comparison. The second part will be a driving comparison. And then as always, on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's just get right into it. Well, let's start things under the hoods of both of the vehicles. Starting over here with the Passport, we have a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6 that goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission. It is good for 280 horsepower and then 262 pound-feet of torque. Now, comparing that to the 4Runner, which has a 4-liter V6, also naturally aspirated, it's paired to a 5-speed automatic transmission. It is good for 270 horsepower and then 278 pound-feet of torque. So we have a little bit less horsepower over here, but a little bit more torque compared to the Passport. Fuel economy with the 4Runner is quite a bit less. So you're going to average in the high teens with the 4Runner, whereas with the Passport, you're going to be able to average in the 20s. Obviously, a much more modern engine and transmission, so you're just going to get better fuel economy numbers. Also, what I'd like to mention is we have struts over there with the 4Runner. We have a hood prop with the Passport. That means something, doesn't it? Now let's go with the front ends of both of the vehicles. First off, the Passport TrailSport has 8.1 inches of ground clearance. The 4Runner TRD Pro has 9.6 inches of ground clearance. Now, if we go back over to the Passport, notice that we have the normal Passport hood here. I love this paint color, by the way. It's got this beautiful metallic flake in it. And then coming down below, you guys can see here with the lights, the overall design on it. I think it looks pretty cool. And then notice here with the little kind of like vent piece off to the side, got your parking sensor right there, and then also a little turn signal indicator. We have the Honda logo that doubles as a sensor. And then notice how we have our TrailSport badge right there. And then notice how it's metallic gray down below. And yeah, overall definitely a cool look. And then if you guys are wondering, if we look underneath here, you guys can see the whole kind of like setup with that. But popping over to the TRD Pro, you've got that aggressive black hood vent, and then you guys can see with the 4Runner headlights. And what you notice with the 4Runner is a lot of stuff is kind of more on the old school side of things. Notice the old school Toyota logo. We do have a skid plate though underneath, front and prominent. And then just notice how the front end is sculpted on the 4Runner to help out with approach angle, whereas we have a pretty normal looking front end with the Passport. Now it's time to go over tires and wheels. So the setup over here on the Passport, 245, 60, 18. Compare that to the 4Runner, which is 265, 70, 17. So what that means is over here on the Passport, we've got slightly larger wheels, but we have slightly smaller tires with a little bit less sidewall, but they still are decently aggressive. And then we have independent front suspension and independent rear suspension with the Passport. Now over on the 4Runner, you guys can see slightly smaller wheels, but quite a bit more sidewall on the tires. We've got these TRD tuned shocks and suspension. They are Fox shocks if you guys are wondering in terms of the branding on the shocks. Independent front suspension, and then a solid rear axle with the 4Runner. And then notice here, we've got a body painted mirror, blacked out mirror, so a little bit of a difference there. It's also interesting to see like the overall height difference between both of them. If I take a few steps back, it's not huge, but it is definitely noticeable. And then notice with the rails there on the top, and then we have the rack there with the TRD Pro. And then notice here with the very large fender flares, and then you guys can see here with the TrailSport how they're a little bit smaller. And well, that's the sides. Now here are the key fobs for both of the vehicles. You guys can see here with the Toyota key fob, there's not a lot going on with the key fob itself, but you can do remote start function by spamming the lock button. Over with the Honda key fob, it's a lot more self-explanatory, right? You guys can see with the remote start and then the opening for the hatch. And by the way, yes, we do have an automated hatch there with the Honda, whereas with the Toyota, we have to lift it up ourselves. Our poor souls with the Toyota here. Anyways, notice here with the storage space on the 4Runner, it is absolutely massive. This is a pretty dang large SUV. You've got a power outlet here in the back, and yeah, just tons of practicality. And then obviously we have to throw that down ourselves. Got to use some muscle there. And then popping over to the TrailSport, Notice, tons of storage space, just like the 4Runner. The loading floor is a little bit higher though, I'm noticing, compared to the 4Runner, but it's pretty typical, so you guys can see a little bit of storage space underneath. Got 180 watts, so we got more power over there on the 4Runner, I suppose. Easier to throw down the seats, which is pretty cool. And yeah, definitely tons of practicality. And then you guys can see, I mean, it's a little bit slower to lower down because it's not just, you know, throwing it down, but still, it's cool that it's power. Now let's finish things up with the rest of the rear. So going over the TRD Pro, you guys can see here with the taillights, again, a little bit more on the old school side of things. And then notice that most things are blacked out except for the 4Runner logo. This button right here actually lets you lower down or raise the window, which is pretty cool. Then we have our TRD exhaust there on the side. And then popping over to the Passport TrailSport, you guys can see here with the TrailSport badge. And then notice with the taillights, definitely more of a modern design. Same thing with the exhaust tips poking out the back. And then you guys can see parking sensors there in the center. And again, you can also see the height difference between both of them from this angle. Okay, now let's pop into the passenger area of both of the vehicles. So starting here with the 4Runner, notice very black interior. We do have some red stitching though. And then you guys can see with the seats how they were designed to make it so they're easy to clean off. And if I pop in, I do have to step up a bit to get in, but you guys can see here with the legroom. Headroom, it's very spacious. Got vents here in the back. We've got some USBs. We have our cup holder armrest set up. And so overall, definitely like a spacious back seat. But if you compare that to the Passport, we actually got a sunshade over here on the Passport. Notice, very black interior as well. Got orange contrasted stitching. And then you guys can see the seats. It's actually easier if I show you this seat over here because the shade. Definitely a lot more going on with the design of the seat with all the perforations. And then popping in, I can pretty much just slide right across. I don't have to step up into the vehicle. And then notice here again with the vents and then the charging ports. Definitely a little bit less space though here in the back. We're going to pop to the front of the Passport first and then the front of the 4Runner second. Now here's the front door panel with the Passport. You guys can see again with the padding and then with the memory seat function there. Front two windows are automatic, and then notice there with the hatch and then the gas cap release. Notice it says TrailSport there, the seat. And then you guys can see the design of the seats themselves and then TrailSport down below. And we're actually going to pop in. Notice we have our Econ mode, mirror adjustments here. And then you guys can see with the stability control, lane departure, collision assistance, parking sensors. And if we pop it on, first off, what you guys will notice here with the steering wheel, really cool. It's got like perforations here on the sides to get a little bit better grip. And then notice here with the stitching, and then we got a bunch of practical controls like our voice command controls, for example, and then your adaptive cruise control with your steering assistance. Paddle shifters there for that 9-speed automatic. Turn signal light stock, windshield wiper stock. And then here is the gauge cluster. You guys can see mostly digital there in the center. Definitely a cool look, that is for sure. And actually we'll close the door so we get rid of that. So as I was saying, we do have some different drive modes we can go through. So notice we've got our sand, mud, normal, and snow for the different drive modes. And it's cool, it shows little Passport animation right there with the modes. And again, this is an all-wheel drive SUV, if you guys are wondering. And then notice here with the screen, if we pop it into reverse, got a backup camera with trajectory lines that do turn with the steering wheel. Definitely pretty cool setup overall. And then as for the rest of the screen, you do have this like shortcut bar here on the side. The rest of the screen response time is solid. It's pretty easy to use, and I feel like it's nicely integrated in the dash. And then notice here we have a tri-zone climate system. So you've got dual for the front, and then you got a climate zone for the rear. And then notice with the heated seats there, a little bit of storage space right here. Wireless phone charger. And then we have our little button selection here for the transmission. And then you guys can see here with our drive mode select, and then notice auto stop start. Then you got some cup holders here. And then pretty interesting center console, very spacious though. That is for sure. And then there's with the glove box, pretty normal. And then up top we do have a sunroof here. Got the controls for the sunroof, and well, 4Runner it is. Now here's the door panel on the front of the 4Runner, similar to the back of the 4Runner. Notice all of the windows are automatic, blind spot monitoring for the mirrors. And we have our TRD logo there in the headrest for the seats. And here's a quick look at the seats. Notice all of our power adjustments there. Pretty normal pedal layout, and then notice the rubber floor mat. Popping in, notice the mirror adjustment is in the same exact place, which is kind of funny. Camera view button, that's for the outlets. And then we'll actually pop this on. Notice similar design with the steering wheel, where we're actually gonna close this first. You've got some like padding here on the top and the bottom, and then perforated here on the side. And then you guys can see you've got a bunch of practical controls just like the Passport, but again, kind of more of like an old school design. You do have cruise control, turn signal light stock, windshield wiper stock. Same thing here with the gauge cluster, mostly analog, but again, it gives you a lot of the same information that you'd get in the Passport. For example, there actually are some different drive modes as part of the multi-terrain select. So you guys can see we've got our mud, sand, dirt, loose rock, mogul, rock. And so there's quite a bit more, I guess, customization here from an off-road drive mode perspective compared to the Passport. And then popping over to the infotainment system, first off, we pop it into reverse. You guys can see the backup camera. This also does have a forward camera as well. Again, not the greatest resolution, but at least it has it. Infotainment system, pretty responsive with the buttons itself and with the screen too. So that's nice and solid. Dual zone here for the front, no climate zone for the rear. And then no wireless phone charger. You just have the little USBs, all that, little cup holder. And then this has a true four-wheel drive system. So the Passport's all-wheel drive. This has two-wheel high, four-wheel high, and then four-wheel low as well. Shifter for that 5-speed automatic. And then this actually has a rear window that goes all the way down, which is kind of interesting, that is for sure. Heated seats, just like the Passport. And then really big center console, also just like the Passport. And then pretty big glove box as well. And then you guys can see again more of like a utilitarian design with the interior. We do have a sunroof though too in the 4Runner. And then notice we have a rear locker. We've got Toyota's A-Track system and then the stability control as well. And then we have our crawl control here on top. And so lots of off-road tech built into the 4Runner. Now in terms of pricing, a fully loaded 4Runner TRD Pro, that one, stickers for about $54,000, a fully loaded Passport with the HPD package, which this one doesn't have, but basically it has a bunch of exterior stuff to it. Stickers for about $47,000. So there is a bit of a price difference between both of them. Now that's gonna sum things up for our video comparing the Passport to the 4Runner TRD Pro. Like I said, there is gonna be a driving video as well, so if you're not subscribed already, I would recommend subscribing. And I want you guys to let me know which vehicle you liked more from a walk-around perspective. So do you like the independent front rear suspension setup with the Passport more, or do you like the solid rear axle independent front suspension setup with the 4Runner? Do you like the utilitarian interior of the 4Runner more, or do you like the more kind of like modern SUV interior of the Passport? Anyways, I will see all of you in that next video.